Hello, hello.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. I am doing better with my contacts. I put contacts in. So funny story. When I went to, when you're getting contacts, the eye doctor, they'll make you meet with somebody to do the testing and all of this stuff and make sure that you're doing it properly, right?
Okay.
It's supposed to be like 10, 15 minutes.
Okay.
It took us about 30 to 45 minutes because the things just wouldn't go in my eyes, or I'd be blinking. I'd be like, so it was, yeah.
So it's so funny because I have worn contacts since grade 6. Like I have literally worn contacts since I was 12 years old. So I can put my contacts in without a mirror. I can take them out without, they're like second nature to me because I've worn them since I was 12.
Yeah. Well, I'll get there. Now It takes me, what was taking me 30 minutes is now taking me probably about 10, 15. So
it's all about skill development, Jen. It's all about skill development.
And as I keep developing the skill, the confidence goes up.
Exactly.
Right.
So for those who don't know us, I am Melissa Maloney.
And I am Jennifer Matwawana, and we are the co-founders of AWL Partners and All Women Lead. I'm excited to be here. Talk about resilience today.
Yes, we are talking about the 3 types of resilience, which might have you going, what? And then we have a 4th. It's just not part of, we're going to talk about it, but it's not part of the model because it's the resiliency we don't want. But we teach in our program Herd Intelligence, we teach the Herd Intelligence resiliency model, and we're going to talk about resiliency through the lens of that model today. But we're chatting resiliency, and which one we want to be. Recognizing that there's different levels, I think, is the biggest thing we wanted to talk about, because I don't necessarily think people think about it that way. I think they think about traditional resiliency, which we call recovery. Yeah.
So it's that bounce back. Something happens and then you bounce back. And one of the things that I do a lot of teaching with regards to resilience is that you never quite bounce back exactly the same as before, because the experience changes you. Whatever that experience is going to change you somewhat and makes you, a little bit different. So it's never going to be exactly as things were before. That makes sense.
And I think that makes total sense. And I think and for us, when we look at sort of the 3 different types of resiliency, and I guess we can tell you what they are now, and then we can dig into them a little bit more. So we talk about recovery resilience, adaptive resilience, and transformative resilience. So recovery is what probably most of you think of when you think about resilience. It's sort of that bounce back. Adaptive is the ability to be resilient in the moment. Okay. And then transformative is that resilience that really has you transition and transform. And so it's a learning lesson. It's something pretty significant happens. And then how do you truly transform from that significant event? So, and then the one that is not in the model, but it happens is, Jen, you want to touch on that?
Maladaptive resilience, right? Mm-hmm. Where something happens and you don't necessarily bounce back. It doesn't mean you're not resilient. It just means there's a maladaptive resilience where whatever happened might have crushed you, and you've taken that situation and allowed it, and I'm saying the word allowed on purpose, allowed it to stop you from moving forward in what it is that you're wanting to do. But don't worry, we're going to talk about each of these and get a deeper understanding. Don't switch off the channel yet.
They're like, what do you mean? Why am I being held accountable to my own stuff? That's wrong.
Maybe the best way to explain it, Mel, is to talk about different work examples, different work scenarios, right? Right. So I'll give a scenario with regards, and then you tell me which resilience we're talking about. So this
I'm
is a fun little.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, I'm gonna go with a very easy one. Right?
Okay.
I'll give a scenario, and then we'll talk about the different ways people can cope with it. All right, so you've made a decision at work, and the decision has cost the organization millions. I'm exaggerating, but it's cost millions, and so now they're saying, "Oh, you're fired." Boom. Okay. What happens in terms of resiliency? What are the different things that can happen?
Right. So there. We're in this. Yeah. So I'll start with maladaptive because it's the easiest, right? And it's interesting because it does happen quite a bit when somebody loses their job, and when they lose their job in such a way, it can really truly make them crumble, like where they just they don't have the ability to start looking for a new job. It affects their confidence, their self-perception, who they are, especially if their identity was that job. So that self-identity can be impacted, and it can turn into just this like inability to move, inability to put something forward. I can't apply for jobs because I can't handle another rejection. Like that's that maladaptive resilience where you're stuck, you're frozen, you're not doing the things to get yourself out of the situation.
Yeah. And so that would be an example of a situation happens, your coping mechanism essentially is to freeze, and you're not able to move forward, right? So that would be the maladaptive. Now, if we were to try the transformative, how could we take that as a transformative?
Yeah. So the idea behind transformative resilience is that the transformative resilience is really taking like a significant situation and using it as a way to I'll say adapt in a completely different way. So we're taking some kind of significant adversity, and instead of, you could just go and apply for another job, right? That would be, let's call that would be probably recovery, right? I'm just going to go apply, lost job, get new job. We're in that recovery resilience. Transformative is, you know what, I lost this job. I'm going to use this as an opportunity of true self-reflection. I'm going to look at this and go, is this something that I really want? What's the opportunity that's coming from this? How can I use this as something that's actually going to transform and change my life? You know, I'd been held back at that job. What opportunities can I pull from it? So it's that ability to look at something that's a significant adversity in your life and use it as a platform, as a jumping off point for a significant transformation in your life. Maybe you start your own business. Maybe it's a completely new career change. Maybe you've been wanting more time with your family. So so you pick up your kids and you move across the world, and you're like, you know what, I'm going to work remotely for the next 12, like who knows? But you use it as an opportunity to transform your life or the situation.
Mm-hmm. And then adaptive resilience.
So in this situation, adaptive might be a little bit challenging in the sense of, because adaptive is kind of in the moment. And if I've lost my job, that might be a little bit hard. But adaptive could be going, I need the money. I still have to have some kind of income. So I'm going to do a few different jobs to make some money while dealing with this situation that I'm dealing with. I'm not just going back to what I was doing. I'm not transforming. I'm surviving in the moment. I'm doing the best with what I have, while I figure everything else out.
Yeah. And so we used that exaggerated example just to kind of make it clear of what the different types of resilience are. And at different times in our lives, I believe that we exercise each of types of those resiliencies, right?
Yeah. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and if we use COVID as an example, because it's a great one to use, if we use COVID as an example, I think COVID is a perfect example, sort of where we could see those three things in action, and also sometimes see those three things perhaps being misused by organizations. It was a very adaptive time. But but there was a high expectation on people being able to live in adaptive resilience and be okay with it. But not everybody actually was trained. They didn't actually have the toolkit to be in adaptive resilience, but there was an expectation that I go with the flow. And so we were trying to use traditional resilience measures of recovery, like just we expected people to just bounce, when they actually needed to be looking at things from an adaptive side of things. And then there were some places that really needed that the outcome of something like COVID became transformative. But in the moment, that's obviously not the energy we were putting to it. And so it's recognizing the energy that people need to put into these different situations and what it takes from people to use these different resiliencies, because it's not the same level of energy and effort to bounce back. And I don't necessarily have the skills in my toolkit to bounce to adapt in real time, or because this is where some of those other skills start to come up more often, and again, that systemic interconnectedness of different skills and tools that we need to survive.
Yeah. I truly believe as humans, we naturally are resilient. It's just that the coping mechanism that we decide to use, whether consciously or subconsciously, will impact the experience of whatever it is that we're going through, right? Which impacts the type of resiliency that you're going to be in. So for an example, if we're talking about COVID, right? We adapted in a lot of different ways. Like we were resilient in a lot of different ways. Some people were like, okay, this is happening. What do we do next? How do we move forward? How do I support others? And some people adapted that way. Some people, they isolated, they cocooned, right? There was a lot of anxiety, and this isn't blaming or shaming or anything like that. This is just what happened, right? This is just what happened, right? And so there was that type of coping mechanism. And then there were people that were like, okay, I'm going to use this as an opportunity. And they created masks, different types of masks, or the body armor that was used. What's that called? PPE or something? PPE. Thank you. PPE. Yes.
Personal protective equipment, PPE.
Thank you. Right? And people use that as an opportunity, right? So everybody takes a difficulty, a challenge, and will adapt to it in their way. The thing that I think we need to do or each individual needs to do, is determine what works best for me. How do I honestly cope with things? Is it in my best interest, or do I need to change? That's self-awareness piece.
Well, and I think if we use a workplace example that perhaps people to sort of show the difference between recovery and adaptive in real time, that maybe isn't as dramatic as millions of dollars in losses or a global pandemic, right? So let's just say we lose a top performer. Right? If we lose a top performer, so we lose a top salesperson, a recovery resilience, right, is we would simply take the work, redistribute, and keep going. Right? That's the bounce back. We'd feel it, we'd absorb we lost somebody, we'd redistribute the work, we'd keep going. But in adaptive resilience, it would be we would absorb that, we would feel it, right? But then we would collectively as a team have a conversation about it. We would figure out, what do we need to do for the next 90 days? And how do we look at things differently? But then we would also look at how do we design transition? How do we design the transition in a way that others aren't impacted? So it's kind of like, it's that elevation where we're using the moment to adapt in real time, but we're not just doing the same thing over again. Recovery, we do the same thing over again. Adaptive, where we're actually adapting and changing, and obviously transformation is we're changing on a whole other level. It's not in real time. It's probably more future tense. We're using the experience to create a better future, and so I think it's looking at how do we perhaps in this situation where we've lost somebody, turn that loss into a succession strategy for the future, as opposed to just absorbing the loss and then hiring again and doing the same thing over again and expecting a different result.
So I almost wonder, I'm going to challenge you a little bit. I almost wonder, would the maladaptive resilience in this situation, would that be taking it and just making like everyone reabsorb the work that's lost and keep going? Would that be or could that be a maladaptive way? Because now everyone is feeling it and everyone is like, oh, we're drowning here.
I would say yes, and because I would say that the reality is that's probably what we need to do. So it's not necessarily maladaptive because the work needs to be absorbed. I would say it's maladaptive, and where it becomes an issue in a workplace is this is a repeated behavior that we keep doing and keep doing and keep doing, and we don't at any point reflect on why. So we've created a culture where every time we lose somebody, we just redistribute their workload. And I think we're seeing this a lot more lately because of income and workplaces needing to come up with ways to cut expenses. So what we're expecting is just that the team absorbs, but we're actually keeping the jobs the same. And that's where it becomes perhaps maladaptive, right? Where people are absorbing, but there comes a point where we can't just continue to do it the same way. We actually have to be willing to adapt in real time. And I think people are scared of the adaptive resilience because they don't. I think we're seeing a lot of people in freeze mode right now because they don't know what's coming. And so now we're expecting people to work in creating real-time change, so that adaptive resilience, which isn't how we've had to work in the past. And we've combined that with needing to work with a lot of ambiguity, which is not how we've worked in the past. And so that's creating almost like a freeze mode where people are just stuck and waiting and not recognizing the impact on the team.
Yeah. For a lot of people, and again, no shame, no blame, none of that, but for a lot of people, living in that unknown is extremely uncomfortable.
Yes.
Very uncomfortable. And so that's why there's that freeze. There's like, I don't know what to do, so I'm not going to do anything. Right?
Yeah. Ambiguity is hard, right? Like ambiguity, and again, it's a skill. Like the ability to live in the gray is a skill. It's a skill that it's hard. I think it's a layered skill, because if I'm part of a culture where perhaps there's a lot of change, I'm probably more willing to kind of live in the unknown because, we change a lot. So the only thing we do know is change. And so there's something in that. But if we're in, say, a really policy-driven organization, or an organization that has a culture of disciplining people for making mistakes, or it's not a safe culture to like try and fail in, all of those things make working in the gray hard, because if I feel like the risk of ambiguity equals punishment, if I accept ambiguity, but the reward is either it works or I get punished, it doesn't create a space for me to really feel comfortable in it. Or on the flip side, like, how do we create like a decision-making framework that allows people to make decisions when they don't know the answer? Because again, that's sort of that ambiguity. Like, I don't know what the answer is going to be, but I can take this much from past experience, this much from rational logic, and this much from the research I've done and go, I think it equals this. And so how do we create confidence in that ambiguity? And what are the tools that we have to give people to help make an ambiguous situation less ambiguous? And then how do we support them if it doesn't work, which is the resiliency piece.
Right. And so to add complexity to this, you have individuals who have their own kind of coping mechanisms, their resiliency patterns and things like that. But then there's a culture within an organization. And I'm thinking there's a resiliency type of culture within an organization. And so for leaders, I wonder, how do we support building that? Right? Building a resiliency that you want it to be adaptive or transformative. Right?
Yeah, I think again, we talk a lot, especially in the last little while, sort of about the systematic approach to the work that we do, because they don't work in isolation, right? So if we think about a resilient culture and how do we build a culture of resiliency, we have to teach people how to fail. We have to help because people don't know how to fail and face rejection anymore. It's not part of life. I was listening to a speaker talk the other day and was talking about young men aren't used to facing face-to-face rejection from a woman the same way that they used to. Like, he's like, do you know how many times I'd approach somebody in a bar and be shot down? He's like, that built up my resilience. And now, because of the dating culture being more app focused, you don't have that face-to-face rejection in the same way. And how does that actually impact you? There's a lot of research around the fact that, our generation, our Gen X generation, we made a lot of mistakes. Those of us who were latchkey kids almost set the house on fire. I know I did. Right? But there's things that come from those experiences that taught us that I could almost set the house on fire, but hey, I'm still okay. And that we learned some of these things. And so now, I don't want to get into generational stuff, but the reality is now, as the younger generation is coming into the workplace, if they haven't had the same life experiences that have taught them how to be resilient, and we're asking questions a lot more of, why do these guys break down so easily? Why are they crushed so easily? A huge chunk of it is because they haven't had the life experiences of resilience, right? It's why people like hiring athletes, because athletes come with a built-in resilience kit because they've learned how to lose.
Yeah. Well, and as a leader, it's really important, especially today, to be intentional about creating a psychological safety within your organization, so that people can fail and be creating, okay.
Exactly. Intentionally creating ways that people fail and then recover. Fail and then recover. We have to teach people how to fail, because not everybody's walking into the workplace with the experience of failure before. And so failure becomes catastrophic when it's really not. It's just part of the day. But we have to teach people that.
Yeah. So creating that psychological safety, and ensuring that people know, one of the things that we talk about a lot is ensuring that there's clarity, people understand what their role is, people understand what the systems within the organization are, so that they have something to fall back on. You need to know, you need to be clear in order to be able to do what you need to do and to fail.
Yeah. I used to, what I always suggest to people is to consider sort of what's the box, right? What's the safe failure box, and almost creating that for the roles within your organization, so they know, if I screw up and it's under $1,000, let's just say random number, but if it's gonna, I can screw up anything that costs the company $1,000 or less, so that way they know this is a safe space, this is a safe comfort zone of failure. And it's creating the box for people, because people want to follow rules, they want to perform, but they need guardrails in order for them to feel safe in doing it. We can't just go, and then wonder when they make $1 million mistake why, and then they get fired, and then they'll never make a mistake again. Like, give them the guardrails.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so there's a responsibility in this twofold. There's a responsibility of the individual, but there's also a responsibility of the leader, right?
And the organization.
The leader needs to create the environment for people, as we talked about, to be able to fail, for people to be able to be creative and experiment and innovative. And with that will come the resiliency when things don't work out as planned. Like, how do we turn that around to be a learning moment? How do we turn that around to be something better than we initially expected, right?
Yeah. Well, and there's fun ways to do it, right? Like, you could actually have a rule on your team that everybody has to fail at least once a week, and celebrate failures, right? Like, flip the script on failures being bad and turn failures into good things, because we all know failures is how we learn. So, like, you need to come to the team meeting this week, and everybody needs to come and brag about what they did that was a failure. Like, flip the script on it. Turn failures out, like, turn them around. They're no longer bad, and they are celebrated. Like, that means we're one step closer to genius.
Yeah, they're learning moments.
Yeah. And then it's also teaching people, teaching people the how to fail in the moment as well. So again, whether it's people in sort of customer service or in sales, like, were there anything that's sort of customer facing, there's an opportunity in that to teach them the difference between externalizing and internalizing. And I used to say to them, so tell me what you're going to say to yourself when you get rejected, or tell me what you're going to say to yourself when the customer crushes you because they're just mean and they've decided you're the person that's hearing it that day, right? Because if I say to myself, I suck at this, I'm terrible at this, I can't do this anymore, that makes resiliency hard, versus if I say to myself, that person's just not ready to purchase yet, or that person is probably not who I want as a customer if that's how they're going to talk to me, or that person must be having a bad day, where I can self-talk with externalized things where it's that person's thing versus me. Even if I have to learn from the situation and reflect, I still need to get through the situation and keep going. So first is the recovery resilience. So I got to change the self-talk so I can learn from it. So teaching that in the moment recovery so that I keep going, because I say all the time about salespeople, I don't actually believe the best salespeople have like a ton of extra talents than the people who aren't successful. I just think they are more resilient through the nose, and they just stick it out longer. And because they can stick it out longer, they get better.
Yeah. And I just want to clarify something. We don't get to control our thoughts. What we get to control is the attention we give to those thoughts. So you might have a thought of, I suck at this, but are you going to give that attention, or are you going to intentionally turn it around? That's what we're talking about, right? Because the thought might come like, man, I suck. It's like, wait. Let me reframe that. I don't suck. It might be this, it might be that, like perspective taking, right? And it's a whole process, and it takes a little bit of time when you're not used to doing it. But the more you do it, the better you get at it, the faster it comes. And then those thoughts, as soon as they come in, it gets switched around, right?
Yes. And I always say you can't do that in the moment. Like, that's really hard to do when you're like, it's not an in the moment thing to do. I've got to prepare for that before the moment hits, and because then I'm more likely to actually execute on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Okay, our time is up.
It's fast.
Questions. What's the question that we're going to leave people with today?
I think like if we really truly think about resiliency and like I would almost say like can people what's the self-awareness moment of, these are the moments when I am resilient. Like let's do a little bit of self-efficacy. Like when am I really resilient? Maybe so resilient I don't even realize I'm being resilient. Compared to when are the moments that are harder for me to come back, and start to do some self-reflection as to why. So when is it really easy for me and when is it not? Because if you can start to identify the why in there could be some power.
Definitely. Self-awareness is key. Foundation. All right, everyone. I'm Jen Matwawana.
I am Melissa Maloney.
And we are so happy you spent some time with us, and we will see you next time.